Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be discussing some very exciting news. Of course, many of you would have heard over the past day or two, Nickelodeon, of course, making the announcement of the creation of a brand new division labeled Avatar Studios. And this, of course, will allow them to expand and build on the existing Avatar universe, producing numerous series and films for I believe Paramount Plus and Nickelodeon as well. So some very exciting news there for those of you who are fans, like myself, who are fans of the series. With this announcement, I suspect, I believe the article had indicated the plan is to release an animated feature film first, and I suppose thereafter we'll maybe see some sort of roadmap as far as what whether there be series to follow, whether it will be on Nickelodeon or Paramount Plus, or what exactly the intention is for how far they plan on expanding this world. I know that there is an ongoing development project on Netflix for a live action series, and of course the creators who were previously attached to the series is no longer added. I still have some hopes for that series overall, if only because I don't think they've already built this world. I think with a good enough writer and showrunner for that series, it can still pretty much be good. Of course, we don't know all the details as far as why where exactly the fallout was. What were the disagreements in terms of where they maybe Netflix wanted to take the story versus where the creators wanted to take it. And I mean, I don't take it for granted that because the creators are no longer attached, that automatically means that it will be bad. I don't believe that that is the case. We've had numerous properties of the like where some were the attachment, the creator being attached to it is more of a disadvantage than advantage, because they may need that story in a particular place, whereas in this instance perhaps Netflix wants to take it somewhere else. That doesn't necessarily mean bad; it just means different, and time will tell whether that will be for the better or not. I've been reading some comments and watching some other videos, and I've seen some suggestions that others have made as far as what they want to see, what kind of stories they want to be told. The most popular, of course, being Kyoshi, which I mean, if they do decide to go in that direction, I hope. I mean, it will be. I'm sure it will be well. It will do well and be received well. But at times, I do believe some things are best left to our imaginations. We feel as though it works well on paper, so it automatically translates on the screen just as well. But that's not always the case. I'm sure if it's done well, I'd love that. But I want to move on from that, and I'm sure there are many people who disagree with that. There was a vast, and I won't go too much into the Avatar versus Korra scenario, because I don't love the versus argument that has dominated the Avatar community over the few years, because it's become somewhat toxic and unnecessary. But in terms of the two worlds, in the world of Korra, the world is noticeably more advanced in terms of the technology that's actually used, whereas in Aang's world, it's not. So in terms of that difference, and where exactly what exactly would suit this new story the best. I'm not sold on going back, as far as Kyoshi and seeing what happened there. I want to go forward. I'm sure the story, once it's done well, once it's written well, and we have a trusted showrunner, then it will be well received. And that brings me to one of my points, where I'm not seeing in any of these articles whether the lead writers from The Last Airbender, Aaron Ehas and Joaquim Dos Santos, are attached to any of these projects or mentioned anywhere. And I believe Aaron had left after the end of Last Airbender. He didn't return for Korra. And for me personally, the difference was obvious. No, that's not to say I didn't love Korra. I actually like Korra quite a bit. So, I mean, let me put that out there, right? For Avatar: The Last Airbender, in terms of consistency from beginning to end, I do believe that was the overall better series of the two, because we do know that Korra was plagued with studio interference, and that will bring me to one of my other issues as far as Nickelodeon's involvement here. And for Korra, for me personally, book 3 in Korra, I felt as though book 3 for Korra was the best book in the entire franchise. I just felt it was very well written from beginning to end. The development of Zahir and the other benders and the Red Lotus, it was just all very intriguing. So for me, that book was the best book in the entire franchise. But Last Airbender, I felt was overall the better series because it was just more consistent. I think in season 2, Amon's story had the potential to be just as good as book 3, but didn't quite stick the landing towards the very end of that book. So both series, elevate themselves in one way or another and have their, done fairly well in my opinion. But yes, Aaron E has, he didn't come on board for Legend of Korra, and as I've said, the difference in terms of the pacing and the writing in some instances was definitely apparent. I know he's been very supportive of the other writers and the team and what they've done with the character as well. I would have been interested to see what his, what choices he would have made that would have been, maybe different. But his not being attached to this gives me pause. If there's, if only because of the, the issues that plagued Legend of Korra, especially towards the end in the 4th season, which we all know, Nickelodeon did not air for one reason or another. There are a lot of speculations around the reason why, whether it's they felt as though it was straying too far from being a kids show to something a bit more adult oriented, which I don't feel that's the case. I saw nothing in Legend of Korra that was considered adult. The most, I suppose, in book 3, if that's the indication, I mean Zahir being a bit more brutal than the other enemies that we've come across. Not even so much that he's been more brutal, I suppose. His actions being more prominent on screen versus we're being told that the Fire Lord is this big baddie and evil individual, but we never really see him do all of that, or at least. So I'm of two minds. I'm cautiously optimistic because I do wonder whether the creators will have that sort of control. Now, it has been stated that they will be the co-chief creative officers at Avatar Studios, which gives me hope because I suppose that means that perhaps they have negotiated with Nickelodeon and said, okay, we want to ensure we have control here, in the way that perhaps they weren't able to with Netflix before, which is why they eventually had to depart that project. So that gives me some hope that perhaps they will, they will have they'll have more control and there will be less interference from Nickelodeon in that. But I still have some reservations because of it. Now, I as I've said before, I'm a huge fan of the Dragon Prince animated series that Aaron has been doing on Netflix, and again, I raise that because again you can see the distinct difference with him having left Avatar out at the time when he did, and you look at the Dragon Prince and how those characters are written, how well they're written. The development, the pacing in the Dragon Prince is just phenomenal. So I do wonder whether this will not, his not being present will actually hurt the stories going forward. I know that there have been persons have mentioned a few allegations against Aaron himself, which appear to be, and I could be wrong. If I am, please post down below, let me know if there's been any verifiable information, right? Because from what I've read so far, there have been complaints about him being just a terrible boss, basically. I don't believe it's anything inappropriate that he's been accused of, so much as his just treating his employees, quite terribly, and that is something that's worth noting and something that he should be held accountable for. But I've seen some bizarre posts about sort of twisting articles in terms of what the accusations are to suit specific narratives, and I don't think that helps any case, whether it's the persons who are affected or not. I don't believe that's the best way to go about doing that. So I mean, that being addressed, if that is addressed, I do think it would be an asset to have either Aaron or Joaquin come on board with this, and it would certainly give me confidence that okay, this will be something that I can look forward to. Um, in terms of my own preference, in terms of where I would want to see the story go, I've been having some discussions with other individuals, persons who likewise love the series, and they would, for me personally, as I've said, I would prefer that we move forward versus going back, um, uh, at least for a series, for the next series, for the next Avatar. I think with feature films, animated films, you can explore the past, but as far as a series is concerned, I think it's best to actually move forward. I for one actually loved one of the episodes in Legend of Korra. I forgot which book this was in, but it was where we met Avatar 1, the very first Avatar for the first time. Now, I know there have been some. I've seen some complaints about the Korra changing the origin of benders and persons not liking that. But look, um, when the creators first wrote this story, I'm sure at that point in time they didn't know that they would want to expand the world or be able to expand the world of the Avatar in the way that they have now. And so when they introduced there was some dialogue between characters about they've heard that Badger Moles taught this person how to earthbend, and same for the flying bisons as well. But this was never verified, and for me, I think the writers went about it as best as they could, as far as okay, perhaps Lion Turtles did this, but the story got muddied over time, and as the information was passed down from one person to another, and eventually somebody said, okay, it's this. The Badger Moles did this. It wasn't the Lion Turtles, and the Lion Turtles were introduced in the last Airbender, and we did see them teach Aang, or at least the one teach Aang. So it's not as though they just conjured the Lion Turtle out of nowhere. It was in the last Airbender. They just decided, okay, this is the way to go because we want to expand on this later on. And it was necessary for them to be able to explain the Avatar cycle itself, which couldn't be explained through different animals teaching, badger moles and bisons teaching men how to bend. So I mean, I think that was necessary, right? So as far as the story, I mean, I loved Avatar 1's story. If we are going to go back, I would want to see how he ended up on that battlefield where he died, and the Avatar, Rava was passed on from him to the next Avatar in the cycle. So I would want to see that story because we didn't see much. We didn't see how he became that Avatar 1 that we saw at the very end of that story. So that would intrigue me a whole lot. As far as and I think a feature film would even do that some service as well. It doesn't necessarily have to be a series. But as far as the series go, I would want to see a modern take. And I know this is going to get a lot of pushback because persons have said they didn't love that, the technology that was used in Korra. But the story has to progress, and I think the issues that Aang had to deal with in Avatar The Last Airbender, you can only repeat those and tread those stories over and over again to so much. It's been done. I don't see what else we can do in that period that we haven't already addressed in The Last Airbender. As I've said before, the Kyoshi story sounds fascinating, so I'd absolutely love to see that. But there would be some sense of predictability in it because we are familiar with it. I think for a modern day take on the character, and it doesn't necessarily have to be. I've had some interesting takes on an evil avatar, which, to be honest, was where I wanted them to take the story with Unalaq in Legend of Korra. They hinted at a dark avatar with him, but we never really it didn't really play out the way that I had hoped it would have. And if this is an opportunity to actually do that, I would welcome it. In a scenario where we're in a modern day environment where technology has advanced to the point, and we see snapshots of that in Legend of Korra. So in this world, technology has advanced to the point where the avatar is no longer necessary. and of course the different nations, in terms of their political affiliations, have put certain restrictions on one nation or another to prevent the avatar from just moving along freely, as they have in the past. And so in a world like that, where I can see different barriers coming up that Avatar has to deal with that has not been addressed before in the past. It's been hinted at, but never really gone there. And just perhaps this Avatar could be born into, into the slums. Perhaps, at this point in time, the White Lotus has been disbanded because there's been no need for the Avatar. And this Avatar ends up being born in that part of, society where the poor and the weakened have been discarded to, and he or she is raised in that environment, and grew to have some sort of disdain for everyone else. One of the reasons why it would be interesting to go that route is because we now do not have the past Avatar cycle. So I believe this is the perfect opportunity to actually develop that sort of Avatar. I know that Korra is the beginning of this new cycle, and the connections with the previous avatars have been severed. I think this is a perfect opportunity to work on an avatar that will be forced to question, whether his or her existence, is a necessity here in this world. We had one of the things I appreciated about Korra and the technology, even though a lot of persons disliked it, is that we saw more non-benders being able to compete with benders, and I think that just makes for a really fascinating story if we follow that. There were a few individuals in Last Airbender who could go toe to toe with benders. I think her name was Mei Ling, if I'm not mistaken. But that was expounded on in Legend of Korra, where we had several individuals who could do that, using martial arts as well as technology as well. So that was just really fascinating. And I've seen some I don't know what else to call them, some very bizarre, and that is why I said I don't particularly love some of the more toxic elements of the Avatar fandom, because I've seen some individuals making comments that Korra, we can't have a future Avatar because Korra destroyed the Avatar cycle, and so there can't be another Avatar. I'm not sure where persons are getting that information from, but the I don't know, the disdain that has been bred in that toxic side of the fandom is gotten so far that it's just bizarre and makes no sense, and I hope that remains a minority, right? But no, the cycle continues. Korra is just the very first avatar of this cycle, right? There will still be other avatars. I have no idea where that bizarre, where people are getting that from. But I've seen it more than once. It's just very odd. But that is definitely my hopes for the series, that it embraces the modern take that they did in Legend of Korra and build upon that, and introduce us to hey, let's just go there. Introduce us to a character that's born in the slums, didn't have the guidance of the White Lotus to mold him or her, and so they resent the non-benders, become something of a dark avatar, but still very much with Rava, because I don't want an Unalaq situation, of course. But he or she will have to battle with that light and dark side of themselves, to find him or herself again and be the true avatar. So I find that very fascinating, and perhaps that's just me looking at it from a more mature perspective, because I do know persons may want the fun and jovial side of the characters that they came to love in Avatar: The Last Airbender, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And with that, I would suggest that I don't know, maybe it'd be confusing to have two series running concurrently, but who's to say that they have to? I mean, they can do this and then do another story as well. the next bender would be or the next element in the cycle would be Earth, and that would be very interesting to see. We've not had, I don't think we've actually ever seen. We've had flashbacks with other avatars, but I don't think any of them have outside of Kyoshi. Because she's just a very well known character, but outside of her, I don't think we've had um, uh, a prominent scene where we're seeing an earthbending character and what they're like. But I mean, if they do decide to go in the past, I would prefer that it's most likely the Kyoshi story. I'd prefer that they not introduce a new character. If they do, I would want that to be in the future, in a modern day setting, new stories, new developments that we have not seen before, rather than treading the same grounds that we have already in a similar, in a familiar setting that we've already seen and already done. That so far is is my take on the news so far. I'm interested to know what theories you guys have as far as what the new avatar could potentially be. I've seen persons suggest some very far out things, even an avatar who's a twin. I think I've seen that in that suggestion has been in the fandom for quite some time now. I'm not sure. I'm not quite sure how that would work. I'm sure it would. It could work. I'm not sure as far as the elements go. Would each would each child have two elements between them, or will they all have the same elements? But perhaps this could tie into my dark avatar fantasy. Perhaps one of them splits and has Rava, and the other has whatever his name is, the her opposite. Vatu. So that would be, I mean, that could be interesting, and that would ensure that I have my modern day take on the avatar, but it's split between one being light and the other being dark. Twins, hey, why not? Why not? It's crazy, but it could work. I welcome anything at all. So be sure to post down below, guys. Let me know what your suggestions are, your predictions, your hopes for this new avatar announcement for the new series. Be sure to hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys for the next one.